thing was I just listened to your old podcast, which is circa season 4 of this podcast, and we're on season 10. So
Oh my God, congratulations.
thanks. We made it really far. And the best thing is at the end of the episode, I ask you, like, what are you working on? You're like, I'm writing this movie right now. It's called Red Notice. And now, according to IMDb, you also might be writing a sequel. And it was like the most successful movie on Netflix. How's that sitting with you?
It's better than the other way. I can say that. No, I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled. Yeah, to be number one on the Netflix platform is stunning and thrilling, and I love it. I'm working on 2 sequels, Red Notice 2 and 3. I finished writing the second one. Just have some note cards over here. I'm breaking the third one right now over my shoulder for anybody viewing. Yeah, we're going to hopefully shoot 2 and 3 back to back and then get them out into the world. But yeah, it was a long haul on Red Notice. We started shooting, and then I don't know if you heard, there's a pandemic that occurred.
No. What happened?
Yeah. A lot of masks, a lot of angry people. And we had to shut down.
I heard it's super conducive to budgets and filming as well.
I can't even talk about it. It was a nightmare. But it hit us about halfway through the shoot on Red Notice. I mean, almost to the day. And so we shut down completely for 6 months and then had to come back and finish shooting, a movie of this size or that size with no vaccine, and nobody had really done it at that scale before. So we had to sort of invent protocols and figure it out. And that's just the actual, like, how do you keep people safe on set, right? And then the other part was, all right, so how do we do this creatively? We were 2 weeks from going to Italy and starting our world tour, shooting around the globe. And now we couldn't leave Atlanta. In fact, we couldn't leave the Atlanta Metro studio sound stages. So all of Red Notice was shot on stage or on the back lot in Atlanta.
Oh, wait, I had no idea.
No, I'm happy to hear that. we went.
Yeah, because I remember that was something we talked about. Is you were like, yeah, it takes place like all over the country, and I was like, are you just writing movies that you want to travel with? And you were like, yeah, it sounds fun.
For sure.
And you shot it all in Atlanta.
Yes, my wife was very disappointed. Red Notice started when she's like, couldn't you write something for a place where we'd want to go on vacation? And it was like exterior Rome day, and then we never left Atlanta, and the movie stars never set foot outside of the state of Georgia. And then we shot a little bit, like a very narrow splinter unit in Rome for a couple of days to shoot exteriors and plates. And that was it. And then it just took a lot of time and effort in editorial to kind of get it to match up and look right. Like, so there, for instance, in Red Notice, there's a dance sequence in a big ballroom where everyone's masquerade ball, but we couldn't have that many people in the same space. So we had to do everything in layers. So when Dwayne and Gal are dancing together, they're dancing in an empty room. And then we do another layer of crowd, and then another, because there was a limit on the number of people in a space, the size of the space, etc. And so I liken it to, like, when you're doing work on your house and you've got to pay, a shit ton of money for the foundation. And you're like, I can't believe this is going to cost as much as everything else, and no one's ever going to see it, right? And it's a hideously expensive way to make a movie, and also people never know that we had to make it that way. It was really trying, and it was also really inspiring, I think, because one of the many things I learned making a movie during the pandemic was just the resilience of the film community and the ingenuity of the film community to kind of figure out a problem that nobody had figured out before. In a real sense, and that we managed to do it, and that it was never a question of like if we could, but how we would. And I was just very inspired by our crew, frankly.
That's like summer camp creativity, where you have like a pencil and a duct tape and they're like, build a bridge. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's what everyone did in COVID.
That and banana bread, I guess, and a Peloton. So
yes, it worked out for a lot of people. Yeah. Does that change how you look at other projects? Because does everything seem easier than what you guys got done before?
Oh gosh, what a good question. No, they all seem hard. I guess what it means to me is like, and maybe my answer to your question is yes, now that I think about it, because no matter what I have to do next, it's not going to be that. It's unlikely that a global pandemic will strike in the middle of my next production and do the same thing. And if we can figure out how to solve this puzzle, then I'm sure we can figure out other things. But that doesn't mean they seem easier to me. It just means that no matter what comes, we'll soldier on.
Yeah. So, I mean, something we talked about on your original podcast was how we all get like that, like shiny object syndrome about like, oh, you're on something, but then there's like an idea. It's like, oh, that thing looks like way better. I'm sure everything looked better than COVID.
Oh my gosh, anything and everything. And, and you get in the dog days of a COVID shoot, and you're just, so the hardest part for me, and I'm not trying to bum out your listeners and we can move on to brighter pastures, but essentially when we went back to shoot an NBA quarantine situation, right? So everybody was isolated together in these hotel rooms, in these hotels that we bought out, and they would drive themselves to set and whatever. I was not allowed to be in those hotels that we rent out because if there was an outbreak and I was connected in some way, they couldn't risk losing me from set. So I was isolated further still. So I had my own little 2-bedroom kind of triplex floor by myself. I would go to work, drive myself to work, drive myself back, not, no physical contact of any kind. My family was here in Los Angeles and I was in Atlanta for 90 straight days. It was really tough. It was 90 straight days of no physical contact, just work, no socialization really of any kind, except for when I'm on set. And then there was not only the pandemic happening, like unfolding during that time, getting worse, getting better, vaccines not even there, but then there was also the 2020 election, which was incredibly tense. And especially in Georgia, it was incredibly narrow. And so there were all of these pressures. Then on top of that, I was sort of writing and directing a very expensive movie with, some, big fancy movie stars, and trying to keep that clear in my mind. It was a real crucible. It was, I think, about as close as I've ever come to kind of cracking. But at least now I know what it takes, right? Like, it's global pandemic and 90 days of isolation and no physical contact and democracy hanging in the balance. Yeah. Future of your country. And then I was
an
just
election You're right. I think you're safe from having to do that again. Yeah. I'm super curious what you did for your mental health during those kind of times, because a lot of actors have done those like quarantine things. And I'm just curious how you take care of yourself when you're only have work to lean on.
That's an excellent question, Sam. I wish I had a good answer. I think I'm a big believer in schedule and routine. So I had a pretty clear schedule and routine. I'll say that the work was my fuel, was my focus. And so I think it would have been a lot harder for me if it was 90 days isolation as an actor, or as even a dolly grip, or not that those roles are not important. Of course they are. But as someone who is in charge of the entire thing and of writing it and of directing it, that was all consuming. And so I didn't really have anything outside of the occasional 49er game that I would watch, or the video game that I would play with, either, with my buddies or something. That was kind of an outlet. And then, of course, every morning, every night, I would call my family. I would send a video. And then I don't think I've told anybody this. There was a door, like a closet door in the pantry door in the kitchen. And when I got there, I wrote on Post-its, I wrote the numbers 90 to 1 on the door, and every day I would pull one off every morning to see how much closer I was getting to see my kids and my wife. And it started as a great thing. Every morning I'd shoot a video with my kids, like, hey, I'm taking off another number. And then they started to cry because there were so many numbers. And so then I stopped showing them that, but I still did it for myself. So, it's little, you're doing hard time in some sense, right? So you're putting little notches in the, little chalk marks on the cinder block wall.
Yeah. I mean, it goes to show too, like, how we can get so myopic in this work, and like the thing that really matters is like everything else sometimes.
For sure. The work is, is deeply rewarding, but it's ultimately hollow if you don't have a life or people to share it with, or people you're doing it for. I don't think that I'm not writing dick jokes for my family. I'm writing them because they make me laugh, and I hope they make other people laugh. And I happen to love my job and hope to do it for some time. But I think that being a father and being a husband and having a family is, it's the greatest thing ever. It's no surprise to anybody who's fortunate enough to have them.
Long shoots are something, I think, especially in different locations, are something that we're seeing, I think, indefinitely, right? Just because things are like getting, especially if you're, for example, talking about shooting 2 movies back to back, for example, if that's going to happen. I'm seeing shows doing it left and right where they pick up a second season while they're filming the first. If you don't mind me asking a little personally, like, how do you maintain good communication in a relationship when you do have like a job that takes you away for such long periods of time, because that's something that's very true for actors too.
Oh yeah, I mean that's the hardest thing, being away on location from your family. I've been fortunate that I've got three littles. My eldest is about 6.5, and a 5-year-old and an almost 3-year-old. So we've got but I've been with my wife for, depending on who you believe, 8 to 12 years. And
8 to 12 is such a big number.
I'm joking. We've been together since I think 09, and it doesn't matter. The point is that we've been together. She's been with me on location. She was with me when we made We're the Millers, and when I made Central Intelligence, and we had our first already born when we made Skyscraper, and then they were all with me in Atlanta for Red Notice. In fact, when we made Skyscraper, my wife went into labor with our second child, and she was in Los Angeles, and I couldn't get back in time because she went into labor at like 8:45, and the last flight was 8:15. And then Dwayne Johnson, because he's the fucking coolest, was like calling his plane. He's like, I'm going to get you there, brother. And he had it all lined up, but the FAA wouldn't let the pilots fly because they'd just flown in. He had me hooked up. And so I missed the birth of my second child by a couple hours. And that was devastating, of course. And then my son, McCallan, who is, like I said, is almost 3, he was born in Atlanta while we were shooting Red Notice. And he was born January 29th, just sort of right before the world shut down. Sarah went into labor on an off day, thank gosh. He was born, and I missed a half a day of shooting, and I was back on set, and then I reshot everything they shot. That's probably not the best story for me. But sorry, your question about, so I've been fortunate that my wife and family have been with me. And I know most people don't have that luxury who are on location. And I think that one thing that I've found that's been really helpful is a consistency of communication. Like, I think the day-to-day thing is really important. So like, it's like saving it up for like, hey, let's talk Sunday. Like, you're so tired by Sunday, you might have forgotten stuff. And I think part of it is when my wife was away, I would send her videos. We started using, there's an app called Marco Polo. We'd send each other little Marco Polos of just like your day-to-day life, the detritus of daily living, even if it was 10 seconds or little texts or, just like that stuff. And my wife knew, and she's fantastic in this space. And she knew she was sort of, it's like being married to a merchant marine, you just kind of the life, ship out. So it's not easy, but I think if you can have a consistency of communication or a routine of talking to each other, even if you're not able to actually speak, to leave each other messages so that you can have that ping pong back and forth and you can feel like you're in that person's life a little bit. I think that would be my best advice.
Yeah, I think the mundane stuff is actually almost the most important. Like, I think, because then you don't feel like you live in separate worlds. It's like, I'm having this sandwich again because you see me have it every Tuesday. And like, then it's it's like a sharing instead of like this is where I am and this is where you are. That's really nice. Well, I have to ask you, because now when you Google you that all it comes up is pictures of you just like absolutely jacked and fit, because you did all those articles.
That true?
Yes. Yeah. You should Google yourself. The first line of photos is just like you looking like a movie star.
Oh my God.
And
so
I think correctly, if I read this correctly, that you spent time while on set, like doubling down on getting in shape. Is that accurate? And if so, how the fuck did you have time for that?
No, totally inaccurate. Okay. You can't do that. It's impossible. After my wife.
Yeah, I was like, how did he walk by craft services every day? What are you talking about?
No. Well, I'm a pretty simple, just personally, just a pretty simple machine when it comes to food. Like I'm not like a Labrador Retriever. Like, I'm not food focused. I don't care about it. If I could take a pill in the morning and never have to eat, I would. Like, it's not a source of, I'm not interested in it. That's not to say I don't like a good slice of pizza or donut or whatever, but my brain doesn't work like that. And I'll forget to eat oftentimes. My stomach will start hurting and I'm like, what? What is that? Oh, hunger. Yes. I should chew something and then that will stop. And in terms of the fitness stuff, that was after Sarah had our son. We both wanted to get into shape together. We decided to go on this sort of holistic kind of fitness journey. So not just in the gym, but all the medical workup stuff, all the stuff, all that kind of stuff, right? Like, I became a father later in my life. One of the commitments I wanted to make to myself and to my kids was to be a vibrant part of their life into my late 70s and 80s, if not longer. And that work needs to start now. Certainly there's short-term vanity goals, right? Of wanting to, look good with my shirt off. That only gets you so far. For me, it was really about trying to change my health and fitness. And so Sarah and I, our friend Kumail Nanjiani, who this incredible physical transformation, I reached out to Kumail and I said, hey, who's your guy? And he introduced us to Grant Roberts of Granite Fitness. And Grant Roberts is an incredible trainer. All he does is turn people into superheroes. And so we met with Grant and he was amazing. And Sarah and I just went after it. And it was so fun to have a shared kind of goal with my wife. That was my favorite part. My favorite part was driving to the gym with her and driving back from the gym and working out with her like that. Like I like the workout part, of course, but getting to just work at building something together. If you saw her pictures, hers blow mine out of the water.
I think I saw them on your Instagram. She looks amazing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, she's amazing. So at any rate, I did all this work and, and it was a year. It was a solid year of really consistent diet and exercise, not crazy diet, but diet and exercise. And I was really nervous. So Men's Health was like, hey, we'll do this thing. And I had this photo shoot and like, I was not sure I was going to do it. Like, I was like, I paid for the photographer. Like I paid, the Riker brothers shot it, Sam. You know the Riker brothers.
Yeah. It looks fantastic. Right. Yeah.
I asked them to shoot it. I told Men's Health, like, I'm going to pay for the photographer. I'm going to look at the pictures. I'll decide if this thing ever sees the light of day.
And they're the perfect guys because they were the Abercrombie models. Like they're the best.
They're the best. They're the best. And so I got the pictures from them. It's like, I'm like, I don't know, why would I ever put this in the world? And then I was hanging out with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. We're friends. And I was just like, I just need your advice, man. Like, can I show you these pictures? And you should just tell me because I think this might be a really bad idea. And he's like, yeah, brother, what do you mean pictures? Like, he didn't know what I was talking about. And then I like showed him some of the pictures. Dwayne is someone who, is incredibly fit. He knows what it takes, right, to get to a certain physical form. And it was really because he encouraged me. He's like, this is great work and you should be proud of this and fuck anybody who hates on it. And if you're proud of it and they want to do it, I think you should go for it. And that was really, I think, the last little push that I needed. And then, of course, my friends have mercilessly mocked me since. So it's,
what are friends for?
Oh my God! Just show your boobs to the entire world. It's you can never. This internet's forever, Sam. And so there are a few. There are more than once. I don't know if I've quite regretted the choice, but there's been a wince or two, if I'm being honest, where I'm like, yeah. So that's a long answer.
Oh man, but it would have been so great if it was like your flag football team though. They would have like put it on a trophy or something, or like
that would have made it worth it. Flag football, I miss.
Yeah, I know. I actually wanted to ask you because you mentioned earlier, like playing a video game like with your friends while you were in quarantine and stuff. You are so busy. So my first question is, do you have downtime? And then what do you do in your downtime? Is there things you do to like relax or play? Because a lot of stuff you're doing is like, you're not doing a lot of small budget things these days, sir.
Not so far. Give me time. I'll get there. Yeah, of course. You need it. It's incredibly important to have that downtime, as you say. There are two things that I do. So I have 3 little kids. So a lot of my time where I'm not working or reading is spent trying to be present and be a father as best I can. I don't always succeed and I often fail, but I try to be there. I'm there in the morning with my kids. I take them to school. I kiss them, goodnight, bedtime, and, more in between. But you still need time for yourself. Everybody does. And for me, every Thursday night, I play video games with 3 of my closest buddies. We've been playing a lot of the Division 2, which we really enjoy, but we'll bounce around. But it's, it is 3 hours, 4 hours at the outside of time where it's non-productive time. Like I'm not thinking, I'm not doing work. I shouldn't be doing, this is scheduled. This is my time to do this thing. And it really recharges me. So there's that. It's a sort of an inviolate kind of time. It's very, very rare that I break that commitment. It's like a bowling league, right? I'm there. So that's one. Yeah. And then the other one is the gym. We just finished putting a little garage gym here at our house, which has given me a lot more flexibility and being able to go into the gym for an hour 3 or 4 times a week and not have anything to think about other than focusing on the exercise, breathing hard, working hard, sweating. That's also really restorative and or clarifying. It's the same. I think everybody should have that, whether it's you're hiking, you're walking, your dog, but I think a weekly or tri-weekly kind of time that you set for yourself to not be productive and to just unhook your mind. I mean, it's incredibly important. I couldn't survive without it. No chance.
Have you had a period where you didn't have something to work on in the past couple of years? Or is there's like, it seems like there's always been something based on everything that's been happening.
Yeah, I've been really fortunate. I've been working straight for quite some time. My wife just laughs now because I'm just like, it's not always going to be like this. This is the last thing. And she's like, it's been a lot, but in a great way. Like I recently, like everything that I'm working on right now are things that I absolutely love. Like I'm not working on anything that's a piece of business that I don't believe in, that I didn't love as a boy, that I don't love now, that I'm not thrilled to get the opportunity to work on. Not that it's been different earlier in my career, but that's something that I'm just really grateful for now, as I feel like I'm in a different phase of my career where I'm able to simply work on things that I love and that pays the bills. So I hope everybody gets that opportunity. It's really cool because it's hard enough, right? Like, you know how hard it is. It's hard enough to do all of this. I couldn't imagine how much harder it would be if you had to work on something that you thought was shit, or you're like, ugh, this is a paycheck and I just gotta do it, and I've had a couple of those jobs earlier in my career, and it was just, you don't do your best work. You're resentful. I don't wish it on anybody. So I've been really, really, really busy for a while. And fortunately, it looks like I've got a bunch of stuff coming up that's going to keep me busy for a little bit longer. And then I'm going to retire.
Sure. Do you ever feel like there's like a pressure to like, because you like what you're doing, I'm going to guess the answer is no. But do you ever feel like there's a pressure to like ride this wave of like opportunity consistently?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think you want to strike while the iron's hot, make hay while the sun shines, et cetera, et cetera. So I do think, at least for me, that's something that I've wanted to take advantage of and use as best I can. But I think there's a difference between being sort of mercenary in that approach of like, I don't really like this, but I can sell it. Or I don't really like this, but they'll pay me a lot. Like that stuff I don't have in my life. Like when I have any sort of heat or juice or anything like that in that space, whatever the term is, I use that to push forward things that I love, that I genuinely want to make. Because otherwise you're trapped. Otherwise it's so dangerous to go the other way. But if anybody as you're building a career, those moments of kind of where people are interested in what you want to do next are so rare and so fleeting that when if you have that opportunity and you want a career, you should capitalize. But make sure that you're capitalizing and you're using that power for good as opposed to greed. Like you should be doing it for like, I love this thing. And they're listening to me right now. And I'm going to tell them why this is good. Because right now they just saw my other thing and they think I'm good. And they're not going to think I'm good tomorrow.
They're going to forget.
Oh, didn't we talk about the 4 phases of the career on the last podcast? I think we did.
Did we? Remind me. What are the 4 phases?
Do you want to know what the 4 phases of Sam Valentine's career are?
Yes.
Are you ready?
Please.
You're sitting down? Okay. I can see you're sitting down. The 4 phases of Sam Valentine's career. Are you ready? Who is Sam Valentine?
Okay.
That's phase 1. Phase 2 is get me Sam Valentine.
Okay.
Phase 3, get me the next Sam Valentine.
Great.
Phase 4, who is Sam Valentine? That's it. That's everybody. That's not just you. That's not just me. That's Buster Keaton. That's Tom Cruise. I mean, eventually, right? That's everybody, right? So everybody gets forgotten. You will all be forgotten. I will be forgotten. Dwayne Johnson will be forgotten. Please don't tell him I said that. Everybody. So where you want to live, right, is get me Sam Valentine. That's what you want to stay in that phase of your career as long as you can. And to get me the next Sam Valentine, it happens either because you've priced yourself out of the market and or you're too big, right? Or you've already skipped over that into the 4th phase and you're forgotten. But that's it, man. It's that. And so because we know that those are the 4 phases of everybody's career, this career, this business of show, as they say, is fundamentally hollow. Like you will never fill your heart with this business. It can nurture you in some sense. It can be a lot of fun. It can be thrilling. It is but it is ultimately at its core hollow. It is fool's gold. And if you try to fill your heart that way, it will not work. And the only way to fill your heart is with love of friends and family and having purpose in your life. And that's it. But this can be fun in the meantime.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and what you said too is really important, I think, in context of who you surround yourself with in the process. So having managers, agents, people who want to let you pick things that work for you. You want to have a team with you who are on that same board of like, let's pick things that like light you up. Let's make it happy. Let's like pick things you want to do. Because if not, then people are pushing you to pick things that you don't want to do, right? Or pushing you in a direction that's not who you are.
For sure. I think that's incredibly important. Having a great team around you in this business, especially, I mean, it's incalculable in value, although they'll take 10% each, I think 20% total, 25%. So be careful who you pick because you're paying them. I mean, I've got the greatest agent in the world, so I feel very, very lucky. I've never had a manager, but I hear tell some people get a lot of value out of them. But yeah, I think having a team that is aligned with what you want is incredibly important. But it's also important that if they're not, that you don't stay in a bad marriage, right? You got to have people who are pulling the cart in the same direction as you are, that see what you want. And then there's that other part, right? Which is, this is going to almost say the opposite thing, but there's also that thing of like, you want your representatives to know you well enough to push you when you need to be pushed. Because sometimes you're like, I don't want to do that because this, and if you have the right person and they see it in a way that you might not, that can also lead you down a path that you never have gone on that can open up all kinds of other stuff. So it's a tricky business. And having good people in your corner is massively important.
Yeah. And you seem to work with a lot of the same actors consistently.
Sure.
Do you just like really like hanging out with your friends? Do you like making movies with cool people? Like what is it?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think you know what it's like when you are working with a director for the first time, it's really nerve-wracking, right? Because you don't really know that person. Maybe there's not trust yet.
It's an eggshell walk first. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Right. Like you haven't worked with this director and she's asking you to do something that doesn't feel right. And you're like, yeah, and you've never seen any of her work, or the thing you did see was kind of shit, but you're here anyways. And you're like, gah, right. So like all of that stuff. So that's why I think directors like to work with their troupe if they can, because you've gone through it before. There's a shorthand, there's trust. Like when I work with Dwayne, like we've made 3 movies in a row. We're going to hopefully make many, many more. And he knows I'm not going to make him look like a fool. Like, even if he does something foolish and I say, hey man, try it with, a banana sticking out of your nose. And he's like, that's dumb, but here we go. Let's try it. Because he knows that footage will never be in the film unless it's fabulous, unless it works. So once you have that kind of trust with an actor, then it opens up so many doors, because it's not just one way. It's not just, hey, try it this way, try that. The actor can also say, look, I think I need to do this here. I think I should try that. And from my side as a director, I don't think I've ever said no to an actor who had an idea of something they wanted to try. Why? Why would you ever do that? Like, it's free. You're here. You're all dressed up. Go for it. And if it's great, it'll be in. If it's not, it's on the floor, and it never existed. So if you can have that two-way street, it just makes it so much more interesting and so much more fun and easier. Anytime Gal calls me to do anything, I'll come running. Kevin Hart, same thing. Ryan Reynolds, same thing. And on and on and on. Like Ryan Hansen is one of my favorite comedic actors in the world. And yeah, man, I'd go wash Ryan's car if he asked me. I love that guy. But like, I'll
send him this clip.
Please don't. But yeah, like, it's that rapport, it's that trust. It's like, I'm not going to hang you out to dry. And I think once an actor knows that, then they're willing to go places they might not otherwise. And there's gold there sometimes.
Yeah. How does an actor become a director's go-to? Like, for my actors listening who are like, I'm not a big star, I'm not this, I'm not that. Yeah. What are some through lines of working with quality people that you've seen that could make actors someone's person?
Wow. That is an excellent question. I think it's professionalism first and foremost. Professionalism, positivity, and playfulness, I suppose, if I had to make it alliterative. But professionalism meaning like you're there to work, you're on time, you're off book, you're positive. So you're there when you're there, you have can-do attitude. It's like, hey, we're all in this ditch together. We're going to do this together. I'm here. I'm not going to bitch that it's hour 16 and you haven't turned around on me. I'm here to do it. I'm happy to be here. And then playfulness, like when you're working through the scene, you do it the way that we talked about it. And then what about this? What about that? What about the other thing? And that sort of, that triumvirate of P's, I suppose, are incredibly valuable to a director, because on the directing side, you're so pressed for time, right? The meter's running. You have 27 shots and you know you only can get 21 of them, and you're trying to figure it out and shit's going wrong. And what you need is somebody who can come in and fucking kill it. Like Eric Christian Olsen did a cameo in Ryan Hansen Solves Crimes, and he's a dear friend. And he comes in, he's a super pro, comes in and just crushes his stuff and rides off into the sunset. Jessica St. Clair was in the second season of Ryan Hansen, and she's just an absolute assassin, right? And you come in and they deliver, and it's easy and there's no problems. It just takes that issue off your plate. Chris Diamantopoulos, who's in Red Notice, he is an amazing guy and so positive and focused and playful and there and present. So I think it starts with being a positive element for the director. And that's both in front of the camera when it's your time. Like, you can't be professional and punctual and pleasant and suck. Like, that's not going to work. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's all fun and games, but like, you have to be great. But if you can do that, I mean, your phone won't stop ringing. It just won't.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the stories you told in your first podcast episode about like Will Poulter being on We're the Millers and just like taking in every aspect of everything that was being thrown at him and just being an absolute professional. And how fun is it for you to watch someone that you really enjoyed working with career just like elevate?
Oh, it's the greatest. It's the greatest because, you're just, especially when they're good people, especially when they're genuinely good people. And Will Poulter is that. He was raised right, and he's a wonderful, wonderful young man. And you just root for those people because they're not all that way, they're not all that way. And so the good ones, when they find success, you're thrilled for them. Of course.
Yeah. You also talked about how much you disliked the audition process, which
it's terrible.
It's terrible. How do you feel about it now that it's all self-tapes?
Oh, I love it. Love it so much more. Yeah. Well, I think that, yes, because I'm able to see more than I would in person. And I'm able to see it in a way where I'm not exhausted by hour 17 of day 2 of auditions where I can't even concentrate anymore. And I think, like, obviously the Zoom life has changed a lot of things, but I think a self-tape is great, right? And to me, a good self-tape is just about, it opens the door to the conversation. And then you need to have the one-on-one conversation with that person, via Zoom, just to see if there's a vibe there and see if you're talking about the same thing. But I think ultimately, like, auditions are, as we talked, I think, about last time, it's such an inexact instrument for what you're eventually being asked to do on a set. But the problem is we don't have a better one. We don't have another one.
That's not it.
Like nobody's come up with a different way of doing it. But if I never had to go watch another audition in my life, I'd be thrilled. If I could only cast off of previous work, right, and a conversation, like, I would do that all day long. And you'll miss, of course, but I think you'll have a better batting average than the current system that we have. Although the only small, like, tiny caveat I would have to that is there are times where you'll be in an audition room and an actor will come in and deliver a performance that you just can't believe. Like, you can't believe what you just saw. And that's kind of thrilling. I mean, it's not as good as seeing it when you're actually shooting it, but it's just the page, the words, the character, whatever, just kind of explode to life in front of you in a way that you hadn't seen and this before. And this tuning fork goes off in your gut, and you're just like, oh my God, who is that? I felt that way when Will Poulter came in for Miller's. I was like, he looked nothing like the character in my mind and that I had written or rewritten rather. And I was just like, that's the guy. Like, I don't know what to say. Like, that's the guy. And then I remember Jessica Chastain came in to audition. My second movie was a movie called The Mysteries of Pittsburgh, based on a Michael Chabon novel. And she came in to audition, and she read for a role, and she was not right for it, but she was unbelievable. Like, just
Hmm.
blow your hair back, unbelievable. And I said, thank you so much. And she left, and I turned to Deb Aquila, our casting director at the time, and I said, I don't really know who that is, but that woman is going to win an Oscar like that. She's unbelievable, whoever she is. And I was right. That's the point of the story, is that I was right. But the true point of the story is that, as we talked about last time, is just the power of actors, and what you guys are able to do. I could never do what you do, ever in a million years. And it's amazing. The right lens on the right actor in the right moment, just, it beats any monologue to death, Shakespeare or otherwise. It's just not close. I mean, it's true. It drives me crazy because I write them. I write the stuff, and I can't outright your goddamn eyeballs. And it just is. And I'm so impressed. I'm so impressed, both with dramatic actors, but also comedic actors who just are in that moment, and whatever they're able to do with their face, with their mind, like just being present and being naturally gifted and funny. It's just something else. So I just bow down to you guys.
Well, we'll take it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Speaking of like comedy versus drama, as someone who writes so much comedy, do you watch a lot of comedy? And do you watch like for like, oh, this is such good writing, or these actors are great, or like, are you just enjoying content, or do you just like not absorb any because you're so inundated by it all the time?
No, I watch everything. It's harder for me when I'm shooting. I really don't watch very much. It's mostly news and sports, because anytime I'm shooting and I try to watch a movie or a TV show, all I'm doing is counting setups. I'm like, oh, it's terrible. Or looking at editing patterns or looking at things that don't match. It's just, I can't. It's sad, but I can't, right? And then I've got, like I keep saying, we got 3 kids. So my wife and I, like, by the time we get in bed, we get the kids down, we've got, I don't know, maybe an hour before we fall asleep on top of each other. So we'll watch something together. Like, and we mix it up. I love documentaries, but I love comedies, and it just depends. Like a great half-hour comedy, when you're tired, it's just like, it's a joy. Like Mythic Quest, the new season 3's up. I can't wait. I love that show. It's so good. I just started watching Industry. I just finished the first season. I'm watching the second season, which is excellent. I thought The Bear was unreal this year. I don't know if you saw The Bear. It was just like a masterclass. Yeah, absolutely.
I consumed The Bear like a meal. It was so
Puns.
good. It was so good.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like Chef Kiss, And so I just think there's so much out there that's excellent. I thought that House of the Dragon was unbelievable, like especially considering the high bar and the big target on their back. So I watch everything I can get my hands on, and on the comedy side, you're always trying to keep your eyes and ears open for somebody that's a hitter. And you're like, oh, that person, I want to, And on the drama side, obviously, that's just pure joy. I don't do a ton of drama. It's not really my thing. Like, I really enjoy it, but for me, it's taken a long time in my life, in my career, to kind of come around to accepting what my voice is, or embracing it is probably a better way of saying it. I love Magnolia, but I could never write that movie. I worship it, but could never write it. When I sit down at the keyboard to write, like, The Power of the Dog does not come out of my fingertips.
It's the dick jokes.
Much to my mother's dismay. And Red Notice comes out of my fingertips, and there you have it, right? And you can fight that, or you can embrace it. And I've embraced it, and I love those movies unabashedly. I love writing them. One of my dearest friends, the godfather to my eldest child, is one of the most successful romantic comedy screenwriters in town working right now. And he writes all of his romantic comedies in a backwards Seattle, Washington Huskies cap and a big oversized sweatshirt. Like, he's a dude, right? He's like a straight up guy. And so it's like, I always liken it to, if you ever watch any of those singing shows, when the person walks up to the microphone, they could be the slightest little petite thing, and this deep baritone comes out. You just don't know what someone's voice is until they open their mouth and sing. And so it can be, the package doesn't necessarily matter. And the sooner that you sort of not accept, but really embrace and honor your voice, I think, instead of fighting it or wishing you were somebody else, or wishing you looked a different way, or wishing you had this or had that, or any of that stuff, I think the more joy you'll have in your life, and certainly in your work.
Yeah. I mean, when you do your low budget period, that's when you can do your like tiny dramas. Like that's fine. Don't worry about
Nobody
it.
wants to see that. Nobody wants to see. There's people who do that too, who do that so well, and I don't think that's a club in my bag, but we'll see.
It's like the cold opening to one of your future movies. I can like for sure see it. It's like we're acting like it's a drama, and then we take a turn. It's like a set piece.
That's a good idea. I like that idea.
I run a writing credit on that if you do it. Well, I'll round us out here because one of my favorite things that you said, like in a tiny bit in passing in your first podcast, was that it's really all about three things, which is hard work, luck, and talent. And then you can only control one of those things. And coming out of the pandemic and going into a brand new year. And so out of the things they can control and what actors can be doing, is there anything you want to add to that in that you've seen in the past couple of years and like hard work, luck, and talent combining to help people out, to give them a new perspective? Anything that comes to mind?
I mean, I think that's the triumvirate of success that I've found. I don't think there's anything new or different. I do think that, obviously in the new year, there's lots of fresh beginnings and people make lists and whatnot. And I think that's all well and good. But I guess I would say, kind of going back to what we're talking about with health and fitness, that there's really no substitute for hard work. And there just isn't. And I think it's about consistency over time. So having a consistent approach and a routine over time, obviously quality routine, healthy routine over time is everything. And hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And I think that part of it, I know it's not sexy. Nobody wants to hear it, but that's it. That's it. That is the whole thing, is how consistent can you be? How hard are you willing to work? What are you willing to sacrifice? I gave up donuts. I fucking love donuts, but I don't love donuts more than I love my kids. Right. So there we go. I still eat donuts every once in a while, but that's, I think it. And I'm not an actor, but I know how hard that job is, from the outside, or at least as much as you can, how full of rejection it is. And it's not easy by any stretch. And if you can do anything else, you probably should. But if this is what you want, and this is the goal that you have, then you owe it to yourself to give it everything you have. And that means hard work over time, consistently. And hard work pays off.
Yeah. I think that's a great message too, because some people get in the mindset of like, well, this year's the year. And it's like, this is the year to keep going. Yeah. Just like last year and next year.
Sam, that's so perfect, right? Like if your thing is like, this is the year it's going to happen for me, that is the wrong mindset. Like, this is not that. Oof. This is, you're here to do it, and it's going to happen when it happens, or it's not when it's not. And if you put that kind of limit on yourself, you're going to be sorely disappointed. That's not how this will work. So I think that's right. This is the year to keep going.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. Agreed. Cool. Well, you keep going with all of the things you're working on. Is there any direction you want to point people in? Anything that will be coming out? Anything you want to like put position? Well,
let's see. Like I said, I'm working on the sequels to Red Notice. I just finished writing a pilot for Dungeons and Dragons. It's going to be
so cool, right? By the way.
Thank you. I'm very excited. I played it as a kid, so super excited. So we're hopefully going to be ramping that up next year. It looks like we're just about to announce where we've landed with it. It's very exciting. And I'm working on a feature film called Voltron, based on an animated series I loved growing up. And we're doing that at Amazon. That's a feature film. And there's a handful of other television and feature film things that are going on. I'm going to be very busy, but I guess I'm on Twitter, I'm at Rawson Thurber, and on Instagram, I'm at Rawson Thurber. I'm off social media almost entirely. So if you reach out to me there and I don't get back to you, it's just because I check it very, very sparingly and sporadically and randomly. I'll get back to you if I can, but that's it.
Great. Thank you so much for this. This is awesome, of course.
Sam, you're the best. You're the best.